Okay, Mr. Chair, we may begin here.
Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Carlos Romero. I'm the vice chair of the board, filling in for Joshua Orozco, who couldn't be here today. So bear with me as I guide us through the agenda for today. And we start with the traditional opening remarks, reminding everyone that per our bylaws, all the conversation and comments must be in the meeting and not in the chat. So that's the first order of business. Second, we want to introduce 3 new board members this morning. Rebecca Estrada is joining us from Los Alamos National Labs. Ashley Long is joining us from representing the Sheet Metal Workers Union 49. And Director Milo McMinn is representing the Public Education Department. So we welcome them to the board. Next on our agenda is approval of the agenda. And there are 2 changes that we need to note. One is that to table agenda item 7, the labor force participation discussion until the next meeting. And the second is to move agenda item 8 to after agenda item 6, so just a little order of operations. So any other changes to the agenda we can entertain now, and if not, move to a motion to approve.
I so move. Mathesinic.
Britton Davis, second.
And then I think we move to a roll call. Is that right, John, on the approval?
We can do that. And for this one, Mr. Chair, we're going to do both the roll call for attendance, and then we will concurrently do this for approval of the minutes as well. I mean, for the agenda as well. Okay. We have Mr. Daniel Slagle. Is he in attendance? Senator Hablin. Mr. Joshua Orozco. Bryn Davis.
Here.
And approval for the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Dale Decker. Deborah Heckes.
Here.
And approval for the agenda.
Approved.
Mark Lee. John Rockwell. Mathesinic.
Here and approval for the agenda.
Thank you, sir. Yashoda Niedu. Deborah Moore.
Present and yes on the agenda.
Thank you, ma'am. Rebecca Estrada.
Present and yes on the agenda.
Thank you, ma'am. Joanna Anaya. Carlos Romero.
Present and approved.
Johannes Camino. Philip Ingram. Kelly Ropke Orth.
Present and approved.
Colby Wilson. Paul Espinosa. Ashley Long.
Present and yes to approve the
Thank you.
agenda.
Carla Kugler. Secretary Nair.
Approved. Yes, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Director Rodriguez. Deputy Secretary Medrano. That should be a change. Director Trapp.
Here and yes.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Crunk. Commissioner Sanchez. Director McMinn.
Hear and approve.
Thank you. Deputy Secretary John Clark. Mr. Chair, we do have quorum, and the changes for the agenda have been approved unanimously.
Thank you. So we want to move to the next agenda item. I do want to correct for the record, Ashley Long, our new board member, is actually representing the New Mexico Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO, not just the sheet metal. So we want to make sure the record reflects that accurately. Sorry for the mistake there. So the next item is approval of the minutes from the board meeting for October 6, 2022. So first we'll see if there are any motions to change, and if not, we can move to approve. So hearing no move towards motions, no one unmuted. I think we can move to entertain a motion to approve.
I move
Debbie
to
Moore,
approve.
so moved.
Oh,
Kelly Repke, second.
And John, is this also a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I will commence with that there. So we have Mr. Brent Davis,
Approve.
Deborah Heckes,
Approve.
Mathis Sinick,
approve.
Deborah Moore,
Approve.
Rebecca Estrada,
Approved.
Carlos Romero,
Approve.
Kelly Rockyorth,
Approved.
Ashley Long,
Approve.
Secretary Nair,
Approved.
Director Trapp,
Approved.
Director McMinn.
Approved.
Mr. Chair, we have unanimous approval.
Thank you. With that approval, we'll continue to the next agenda item. Bylaw revisions. And John, I think this is your part to go over the revisions and then proceed, correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to look at the revision, that slight revision we made with the bylaws moving forward. We thought it was in the best interest of the board and following some best practices with some other states that we're going to request to make a change from going to bi-monthly meetings to meeting quarterly with the State Workforce Board. These meetings will be set up with the intent of trying to schedule it within the second meeting of the quarter, but that'll also give us some flexibility to move it around. With the biggest one coming towards the end of the year, when we're going to move the State Workforce Board meeting, where normally it may be in November and the second meeting of the second month of the quarter, to the last month, December. That'll give us time to prepare to present the state workforce plan for 2024 to the board at that time. So, Mr. Chair, the recommended change is to change the bylaws for the State Workforce Board to meet from bi-monthly to start meeting quarterly, effective with this meeting today.
I'll move to accept the revisions to the bylaws.
I'll second. Mathis.
DJ second.
So with the motion made and seconded,
Sorry, Deborah second.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll commence with roll call on this. Brent Davis,
I approve.
Deborah Heckes,
I approve and I seconded.
thank you. Mathis Sinick,
I approve.
Deborah Moore,
Approve.
Rebecca Estrada,
Approve.
Carlos Romero,
Approved.
Kelly Rockyorth,
Approved.
Ashley Long,
Approved.
Secretary Nair,
Approved.
Director Trapp,
Approved.
Director McMinn.
Approved.
Mr. Chair, we have unanimous approval.
Very well. So we're ready to move to the next agenda item, which is the New Mexico State Workforce Development Board Open Meetings Act resolution. I think you're going to walk us through this as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, board members, this is something we have to do annually, and because we did not hold our state board meeting in December, we're going to commence and begin the annual approval for the Open Meetings Act resolution for the board. There are no changes to the resolution. However, we do want to bring up that in the resolution for section 11, where we added previously of meetings held during times of state emergencies, we just wanted to make the board aware that when the state emergency is officially expired, that the board will have to revert back to textual content of the OMA requiring us to meet in person. This is something I did confirm with the AG's office, and also did ask if there's any changes that we can make within the board and the bylaws to make this more flexible. So, we were told that we could not. We have to go textually according to what the OMS states, and that does require us to meet in person. So just wanted to make the board aware is that when that point in time comes, then I will begin to make the adjustments to inform the board members of the venue change when that time comes. So if there's no changes with that as far as suggestions, Mr. Board, then we can probably move forward to accept the resolutions as it is.
Mr. Chair, John, a question. Do we have a sense of timing when the emergency or whatever is going to be declared closed, just out of curiosity?
I don't have anything unless Secretary Nair has anything. I did ask that question and there was nothing that I was given to give us an answer for that.
Nothing here.
Well, barring that, I'd make the motion to approve.
Well, I want to recognize Board Member Shinik. I see you have
Just-
hand raised.
A second question on that is just, where would the meeting be held in person? When I joined, we were in the state of emergency, so I've never been to an in-person meeting. John, where is that held usually?
We normally held it in Albuquerque, and we do have a partner with Ms. Carla Kugler where she had her facility available to us. So that's what we had it previously. Now that's something I believe the executive committee will discuss how we will commence forward and maybe suggest locations. So, and that's something we can discuss when that point comes and to determine a venue for this.
Okay, great, thanks. Well, I second the motion.
So a motion's been made and seconded.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Bryn Davis,
I approve.
Deborah Heckus,
I approve.
Mathis Sinek,
I approve.
Deborah Moore,
Approved.
Rebecca Estrada,
Approved.
Carlos Romero,
Approved.
Kelly Ropke Orth,
Approved.
Ashley Long. Ashley Long,
Sorry about that. Approved.
thank you. Secretary Nair,
Approved.
Director Trapp,
Approve.
Director McMinn.
Approved.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, we do have unanimous approval.
Very well. So now I believe we're ready to move to agenda item 8, the legislative update. Secretary Niners, I will give the floor to you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all virtually, and just thank you once again for serving on this board, especially this time of year. I know everybody's schedules are crazy, and I appreciate you taking the time to pay attention to these super important issues. As you know, both from your own experience and from your work on this board, workforce is at the top of everybody's mind at the legislature, whether they're talking about our department or not. So the Behavioral Health Collaborative, for example, so we have some folks from HSD on here. One of their top priorities is developing the workforce of behavioral health workers, because all the money in the world doesn't help unless we have providers to make sure that we can provide those services, especially in rural communities. So, that's the good news. Whether that good news is going to be supported by money is a different question. So we have a few asks out there. And anytime you're up there, and if you have any interest in talking to a legislator, here's what's on deck from our perspective. First is our annual budget. So unlike other agencies that are primarily funded by federal funds, Workforce Solutions gets about 90% of our budget from federal funds. And what that means is that when we get an across-the-board raise or an increase to minimum wage or any of these things happen, we don't get matching federal dollars. We have to absorb that. And the way that we absorb that is by leaving positions vacant. So we run about a 20% vacancy in our employment services, which is bringing people back to work, just because those positions aren't really funded, because we don't have the money to match that from the federal side. So we've asked the legislature to give us more general fund, or to allow us to dip into our own penalties and interest fund. And that's really top of mind for me. We just need more non-federal dollars if they're going to keep bumping up folks' pay, which of course we support for our workers and for the folks who do such great work in the department. But we just don't get anything to match that from the feds. Another top priority is apprenticeship, and there are two really great apprenticeship bills running right now. One is in the House. Representative Joy Garrett is brought an amendment to the Public Works Apprenticeship Act, which would bring Department of Transportation projects into that act. And what that means is that DOT projects would either hire apprentices and do their own thing in terms of engaging apprentices, or they would contribute to the Public Works Apprenticeship and Training Fund, which could really use more funds to keep up with the demand. And we've been working closely with labor on some money we got last year to make sure that both open and closed shops that have apprenticeship programs are getting the level of funding that really makes a difference. So the Public Works Apprenticeship amendments would be super helpful that way. And then there's also a straight appropriation bill brought by Representative Cates and a few others, and that just makes a $1.9 million appropriation to our Apprenticeship Assistance Act fund. And that pays specifically for related instruction for anybody who applies for that program that has a registered apprenticeship program. We basically take the pool, divide it by the applicants, and give out a certain amount of money per trainee. And that money has historically been less than the cost of training that person. So again, we'd love to bump that up. And then in the rest of the world, there are a number of bills that affect business and workforce. There are a couple of minimum wage bills that are still floating around there. And there's the Paid Family Medical Leave Act, which dropped earlier this week. That would establish a state-funded, an employer and employee-funded program run by the state, and require employers to give up to 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave to employees who have been there for a certain amount of time. Our position is just, if they're going to pass it, we want to make sure it's adequately funded and that we have enough time to roll out a good program. And there's a whole bunch of different thoughts on this bill, but I would encourage you to pay attention to it. And it's Senate Bill 11. And if you're the kind of person who pays attention to the legislature, that's a good one to watch. I really have no sense of where it's going to go. And again, our position is just, if you're going to do it, make sure we can do it well. And those are the highlights from the workforce perspective at the legislature this year, but happy to answer any questions or talk any more about any of those topics. Thank you.
I've got a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Davis, we recognize you.
If you had to make any, I'll say, predictions of the summer and fall from a workforce recovery, what is your confidence, or what do you think it's going to look like for us in New Mexico?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Davis, I tend to be a cautiously optimistic person in general, and so I feel that way now, but there's a couple of reasons. One, Medicaid and SNAP bonus payment, the extra payments from the pandemic are falling off, and there's a re-eligibility recertification process going on now. And in our conversations with HSD, they believe that that's going to encourage some folks to get back into the workforce just to make up that difference in benefits. And so we might see that ripple effect. We are also just seeing that drop in the unemployment rate, which, you know, it's a mixed bag for folks who are looking for people. It's good news in some ways, not good news in other ways, but we are continuing to see that trend. So we're at 3.9% unemployment, which is the lowest since 2008. And we're also starting to see just, I think, people recover from the pandemic and enter the workforce because they figured out childcare, because they've gotten additional training. Certainly the expansion of the Opportunity Scholarship is probably a couple of years out from being able to see the effects of that. But the expansion of free early childhood education and childcare is definitely, we're starting to see that, especially in communities that, again, that they have providers. So there's also, you know, there's been a number of mass layoffs, which is obviously terrible news, but has brought some manufacturing workers back into the labor market, from the Sennheiser layoff here in Albuquerque, and then of course the Four Corners layoff. So, you know, for those folks who are looking for people in the trades, in the electrician welder world, they may not have certifications if they worked in the mines or the power plant because they didn't have to, but those folks are highly skilled in those areas and are becoming available for work as well. So those are the reasons for my cautious optimism.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll now recognize, I see 3 board members. We'll start with board member Roki Orth. I hope I said your name right.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, if we could just quickly recognize 3 board members that arrived, Director Gallup, Johannes Camino, and Yashoda Naidu. I just want to make sure they're on the record that they have attended the meeting.
Very well.
Chairman, Secretary, thank you. With regards to the 2 bills that you just went over with us, HB 114, which is the appropriation, I just really want to sincerely thank you for supporting boosting financial investments into state certified apprenticeship programs. We all know that they will help attract and prepare a skilled workforce. But I had a specific question with regards to HB 46, which was the first bill you addressed, which removes the exempted sectors of the construction industry, i.e. highway. Do you have any idea from a dollars perspective what that will bring into the Apprenticeship Assistance Act if that gets passed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Roki Orth, and thank you always for your advocacy and all the other folks here who are apprenticeship evangelists. For those of you who don't know, there's a 90% retention rate for employers who engage apprentices, and we have programs in all across the board. We have broadband programs, we have medical coding programs, so it's not just for trades anymore. Specifically on the Public Works Apprenticeship Act bill, the fiscal impact statement provided by the Department of Transportation, I believe, estimated a $2 million impact, but that wouldn't all be going into the fund. That would be going into, in some cases, investment in somebody's own, in the contractor's own training programs, and in other cases coming into the fund. So, and I'm not sure sort of how if they just kind of back of the napkin calculated that or had some other way of doing that, but that's the only number I've seen so far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Board member Shinnick will recognize. you at this point.
Thank you, Chair and Madam Secretary. In our first of the 2023 business engagement the group discussion, we talked about two things I want to ask you and get your help on. One is, the perceived aspect that companies need to understand the language of the workforce department, as well as department needs to understand the language of corporations or the private sector. So we'd like to get your thoughts on how we can engage with you on that. And the second is helping to streamline or make available to companies kind of a one-stop place to go to, to be able to understand everything that's going on. And that might exist already. I know with budgetary constraints and what you mentioned about how you get funded, that's something might be a bit daunting to do, but I'd like to get your thoughts on where that stands as well.
Sure, Mr. Chair, Member Shinik. Great questions. A long time ago now, I was a business lawyer for about a decade at the Sutton firm. So I've been on the other side of this department, and especially that terminology piece of it. So I definitely have a lot of empathy for that experience. We are planning a couple of things. One is specifically with regard to the Paid Sick Leave Act. We're going to do a whole nother round of outreach now that it's in effect. If there's changes to the minimum wage, we might just roll that in there as well, but there'll be a whole new round of outreach for that. So if you're interested, if you could let Mr. Casado know and he can pass that on to me, then that would be one point of entry. And then the other is we're just going to do what I'm calling a general roadshow. We did this when I worked at the state auditor's office. Much like that office, a lot of people don't know that we exist until they have some reason to be unhappy with us. But we do a lot of really great things, and we have a lot of great expertise in-house. So we are kind of putting together, and it'll be like a 101 on the department, but we'll have folks at these locations to also go in depth with, we're going to go to chambers, we're going to go to professional organizations and also community organizations. So we're still putting together the calendar for that. But again, if you're interested in having us come to present to your group or whomever, if you could let Mr. Casado know, he'll let me know. And then we do have a person, her name is Karen Hewledek. She works here in Albuquerque, and she oversees a team of 30 business specialists who are in various communities whose job is specifically to work with businesses on everything that we do, whether that be on the employment side or unemployment or reemployment side. So, again, let John know what your interest is, and we'll be sure to connect you to someone in your community if you're not here in Albuquerque or with Karen. But the department, I can't take any credit for really anything that's going well here at the department because I'm new. But this has been a real focus over the past few years and the past two secretaries to make sure that we're engaging with businesses, with folks who are really focused on that. So we're working on it. But again, it's one of those best kept secrets that we need everyone to know about.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'll follow up, John, with you in terms of sketching some follow up on those two topics. Thanks. Thanks, Secretary.
Thank you. We'll recognize Board Member Chemueno. Did I say it right? Is it Cam or Chem?
Excuse me. Yeah, I was on mute. Yeah, thank you so much for recognition there. Madam Secretary, I had some questions related to behavioral health providers as well as the allocation of the Medicaid budget within the bills that you had discussed. And I wanted to see if you have any type of potential guarantee that the Medicaid allocation of that budget would go to private practitioners versus the managed care practitioners across the state of New Mexico in terms of economic development in the workforce structure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Member Chemueno. I actually don't really know about that side of it. Again, I think we might have some folks from HSD who are on the participant side of the call who may be able to answer that question better. But I'm not aware of those Medicaid allocations. That's part of our task ahead of us, is to understand there's embedded workforce dollars all over state government. And part of our task in the coming year is to understand where they are, not so that we can take them over, but just so we can point folks in the right direction. But certainly, if there's no one on the call who can answer that now, let me take that down and we'll get in contact with you. I'll do some follow-up.
Yeah, I think before I would be willing to vote on any type of support within the bill, my concern is that there's a larger increase of private practitioners that are leaving the state due to these types of concerns of budgetary dollars not being allocated in their direction, but going into the larger health systems, which is causing challenges across the private space of private practitioners that are leaving New Mexico. And so I would definitely like to put a large emphasis within the bill, if possible, in terms of any type of amendment, that there would be a direct allocation or a set aside within that budget to ensure that there's an increase of providers coming to the state versus the other way around.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Member Chimueno. I'll have to even just look up that bill because it's weird the way that who they ask at the legislature. Those of you who have been involved know this, but it's sort of like a word search. If it has the word work, they ask us about the bill, even if it has nothing to do with us. But if it doesn't, they don't. So let me seek out that bill as a first step and see whether we should be weighing in on it to bring up concerns like yours.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. So now, Board Member Long will recognize you, give you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam Secretary. Just wanted to first just really extend our appreciation to you for not only your acknowledgement, but your support of the 2 apprenticeship related bills. Obviously in organized labor, we have a vested interest for our members, for our communities, and for the future workforce, building that all across New Mexico. Those 2 bills proudly are being led by organized labor, and just extending the invitation to all folks, anyone who would like to partner with us on these bills. We're moving them pretty well through the legislature, but organized labor will definitely partner with anyone on these and look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, Member Long, thank you. And yeah, it's really actually pretty fun to sit through these hearings, and then when they have stand-in support and all of organized labor is there, but also all of the closed shops, all of the industry groups, it's like they're all on different sides of bills like minimum wage, but when it comes to apprenticeship, we all stand up together in support. So thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Nair, and thank you for entertaining the questions and comments from the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And unfortunately, I do have to go up to Santa Fe now, but it's really been a pleasure to see you all. And thanks again for your service.
Excellent.
Thank you. Good luck.
And I think we're ready then for agenda item 6. And Mr. Casados is going to walk us through the New Mexico 2024 Combined State Plan. And then we'll have an opportunity for additional comments, but
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do want to bring up, it has come to that time again where we need to start preparing for our 2024 New Mexico Combined State Plan. What we have done from the last time we've done this process, we've recognized several shortcomings with the process in itself and the delivery of the plans to Department of Labor. So we've decided to start this process about a year in advance. And the significance of doing it this long is we want to be sure that we hit several milestones throughout the course of the plan preparation. And some of those milestones would be, meeting with our plan partners to come up with the goals and the strategies that are involved with this, and also conducting public input sessions. The last time we did this, we were only able to conduct 2 sessions. Our plan right now is to be able to conduct a public input session in each work region throughout the state. So we're working on all that. Prior to doing all this, we do have an RFP, and I say we, as far as Department of Workforce Solutions, does have an RFP out to bring on a facilitator, as we have done on the last one, to help us through this. So that RFP is out right now. We are entertaining some bids that are coming in. We're hoping to have a selection by mid of this month. It kind of set back the date that I wanted to start the process, but it's not too far behind. For the state plan partners, we will conduct about 6 meetings in order for us to kind of get together and strategize the goals and the strategies for what we're looking to do for the next 4 years, starting in 2024. And then we'll start bringing that information out into the public, and we'll conduct that. So with all that, once we gather all that information, it is my plan to, again, bring this state plan to the state board for review, and for us to discuss as a board in December of 2023. Once the plan is submitted to the board will have approximately 2 months to kind of look over it, give us some feedback, and we will make this all part of the public input comment. And that'll give us a chance to finalize the plan for the February meeting, where we will ask the board to approve the state plan prior to submitting in March of 2024. Mr. Chair, that's kind of the highlights of what we're talking about. So as we move forward, and once we approve the vendor from the RFP, then I will start putting out some more detailed goals and timelines with the milestones that we have to hit throughout the course of the project. With that, I stand for any questions from any board members regarding this.
Ms. Cruzados, while we wait to see if other board members, I see board member Shinik, but I just want to ask, is that RFP already out, and what's the deadline? And can you clarify?
Yes, the RFP was put out January 21st, if I recall on the date. And we do have 2 bids in-house right now. We are actually looking at maybe extending it. We had several people that we discussed with the possibility of putting in bids, but due to maybe some other project conflicts, there were some vendors who are unable to participate. So we're actually considering also extending out the deadline for this to maybe try another network that Secretary Naya has discussed with us, to maybe look at some other opportunities as well. So, but I did explain the importance of hopefully getting through this process as quickly as possible. This way, we're not rushing through the process of meeting with our partners and meeting with our board members and with the public as well.
Thank you so much. Now we'll go in the order of hands raised, and we'll recognize board member Shinik.
Thank you, Chair. John, what would be your ideal facilitator? What type of organization or entity would you ideally want to have doing that? And what's the timeline? Is it across the whole process of getting to the actual submission in March of 24?
Very near. So, the vendor that we're looking for is obviously someone who's got experience with this type of process and dealing with strategies with state government and what we want to do within the state as far as the goals we want to achieve, obviously aligning everything with the priorities of the governor's office.
Right.
So, my last one, Mathis, I came on board and we had this facilitator who came in, and they were from New Mexico first, obviously much experience when it comes to working with these issues here and collaborating on all that. So we're looking for someone very similar to that. We believe the process that we went through last year, or the last time we have done this, was very intense, and I believe very successful for what we were looking to do. I think we hit many objectives on the last state plan and the delivery of the state plan as far as the content we wanted to deliver, but obviously we have some goals to improve on what we delivered content wise, and also as far as time process wise. We felt there was a shortcoming with the state board last year and giving them ample time to review and give us feedback on the state plan last time.
Yeah, okay. And do you have a committee, or if someone wanted to be involved in working with you on this, how do you go about getting involved in that?
Your question as far as in a committee, as far as reviewing the RFPs, or just looking to be involved in the entire process in itself?
The entire process, just to support you going through it.
Absolutely. We can have a side conversation to see what your thoughts would be on that. I do project manager the entire process, and in working with the vendor, whomever that would be. But I'm absolutely open to other suggestions if we can make this a very seamless transition throughout the entire thing.
Cool. Okay, I'll come back to you on that. Thanks, John.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Board Member Tim Wainwright.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. John, good morning. I'm kind of curious, just high level, if you can walk us through what the procurement process is and what the procurement policy is related to issuing either RFIs or RFPs. And then the second part of that question is not only identifying what that process looks like, but does your process consider small businesses, minority and women-owned businesses? Does it include SBA or small disadvantaged businesses, or Hub Zone and 8A organizations? Can you just, again, high level for us, kind of walk us through what the department's policies and procedures are?
Yes. Thank you, Board Member Camino. I can talk to the process on the RFP up to the writing and the delivery up to our procurement department. So we, within the RFP, we work through identifying the scope of work that needed to be done with that, along with the deliverables with that. Once that RFP was written out, obviously we got the approval of the secretary. Once it goes through the procurement process, that's another department within the agency that kind of goes through that. So we did post it on our website to put it out there. Now, we did understand that there was a shortcoming as far as the outreach. And I think that was the part that the secretary had a conversation with me yesterday, as far as maybe possibly extending that opportunity out, because she did have a network of small businesses within working in the city, and inviting them, right, to kind of looking at the small business portions of these companies who are a part of this industry, to give them a chance to look at bidding as well. So we're trying to work with connecting with that network and putting that information out there on the outreach to let them know that there is an RFP for this. So we did recognize that maybe small businesses did not have an opportunity to see and or respond to the RFP. So we're looking to possibly extend that so we can give that chance to them.
Okay. I would like to, again, just reiterate the importance of reviewing these procurement policies. What we've seen within the departments across the agencies is a consistent allocation of those budgets or those procurement opportunities to the same organizations across several years. And so looking and revisiting the policies when it comes to procurement, understanding the opportunities of diversifying that structure altogether, I think is really important for the board to be able to have transparency within that space. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you. I do want to just put out there that, with me doing this for the second time, there are things that I continue to learn as we continue with this process. So this, as we talk about the outreach, making sure we're doing a better job with outreach to reach out to all those possible vendors who wish to be involved with this. So that is something I will put in my little notebook so we can make sure we do this correctly on the next process.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And now we'll recognize Board Member Oki Orth.
Chairman, thank you, John. That was a great segue, because I just had a historical question. So the last plan, its 4-year plan, was done in 2019. To your knowledge, historically, has the WIOA vision, or the 3 hallmarks of excellence under that WIOA vision, has that shifted much over the last few plan review sessions that you're aware of?
That I am not aware of. I believe when the plan came on board nationwide in 2014, I believe 2016 was the first state plan, and there was a much different process when that occurred, when they wrote that plan out. When we conducted the 2020 state plan, there was a much different approach to be able to recognize what you had just suggested. We wanted to get more collaboration with that. It was very important for us when we were given this task that we made sure we reached out to our sister agencies and the public to make sure we gathered as much information as possible based on the directive we got as far as the priorities of the governors, and understanding what we're looking to do to hit those objectives. So again, this is a growing process for me. My last one was my very first one. So we hope that this one we can continue to build upon. So we're really counting on the input of the plan partners and especially the board members. And we're hoping as we kind of put these invitations out for the regional workforce regional input sessions, that we can get board members, whatever respective area they may live in, to attend these and to help us provide some insight on what they're looking to do. And we're hoping that the public can be involved in this conversation as well. It's so important that we recognize what they're trying to say to us as far as what we need to do as a workforce to help not only the citizens, but also the communities that we're trying to represent as well.
The historical context is important to me, so thank you, John. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I think that concludes in the agenda items. We've entertained chair and board comments as we went. But if there are any others, I think we can open the floor for other comments and questions of the board. Seeing no raised hands. We also do not have anyone register ahead for public comment. So that means we have reached the end of our agenda. Is that correct, Mr. Casados?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if nobody's got anything else, then we can make a motion to adjourn.
Very efficient, Carlos. Well done, and John. I so move we adjourn.
Kelly Repke, second.
Thank you all. A motion's been made and seconded. Is this also a voting item or is this good enough to?
It is not a voting item. We
All
are
right.
adjourned, Mr. Chair.
Well, thanks for bearing with me and thank you for your attendance, especially those in the public audience as well. Appreciate you making the time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you again.